really excited about this evening. We have got an unbelievable webinar ahead. Just looking at the panel and having a conversation before everyone joined was great. And I know that the next hour and a half is going to be amazing. So I am a host. My co-host is Chris Paros. Like I said, the session will be recorded, so please look out for it on social media. But Chris, as a co-host, I'll let you do the introductions first.
Sure. So, hi, thank you, Anwar. My name's Chris Paros. I'm a football fan, first and foremost. I'm the co-chair of the Proud Lilywhites, which is the official Tottenham Hotspur LGBTQ+ Supporters Association. I'm also on the board of the Football Supporters Association and a trustee of Kick It Out. So I do lots of things in football, and I'm really honoured to be hosting this panel tonight with Anwar, because I think we've got an incredible sort of lineup of speakers, and I think we'll have a great conversation.
Thank you, Chris. I'm Anwar Uddin. I'm the Fans for Diversity campaign manager. I'm also a former professional football player and current assistant manager at Aldershot Town. So it's a privilege to be here. I know so many of you that have logged in, and the last Terrace Talk was a great success, loads of conversations. And I think that's the key thing about what we're trying to do, bring people together to have that conversation, bring people together to help each other through what has been a difficult time for various reasons.
You might have to Chris Whitty it, Anwar. Next slide, please.
Yep, next slide, please. There we go. So a little bit about the FSA. So hopefully a lot of you are our members. If you're not our members, please join, because it's free to join. But the FSA, as it says on the slide, this is who we are. We try to be the voice of fans. We bring football fans together to look at all aspects of the game. How can we improve the game? How can we work together to make our beautiful game as accessible, as inclusive? Everything we need to do, we work together to try and make that happen. It's great that so many of you are on the call today. The FSA have been brilliant for me, having retired at the age of 32. I was passionate about equality and diversity. I wanted to do more, and they gave me the opportunity alongside Kick It Out to kind of look at working with fans to make the game as inclusive as possible. So love the FSA, love what we do. And I think the last few weeks has been a really, really significant time for us, because we've been banging on about reform, for example, for a long, long time. That's just one of our aspects of our work. And all of a sudden, with the European Breakaway League, all of a sudden, the work we've been doing for 10 years is now taken seriously. So this is who we are. And I would encourage anyone who's not joined to please join. And if you've got friends and family who ain't members, please get them to join, because we're stronger together. And the bigger we are, the better we are. Absolutely.
And I think, if you think about how important, as Anwar's just said with the European Super League, the fan movement has been, and the FSA's got 358 member groups, and imagine how many members each of those groups has got. So what that united voice means. So welcome to Terrace Talk. There we go. Brilliant. Supported by Mind and the EFL. But it's for all supporters, and it's a supporter-led mental health initiative. There's going to be a series of events throughout the year. It's going to include training for staff, volunteers, panel discussions like this one, and the publication of shared resources. So, as you know, it's Mental Health Awareness Week. So there's going to be a number of events running this week. I think they're going to come up in the chat soon. So have a look at those. I'm not just going to read what's on the slide. You can all see that.
And tonight's session, everyone, we're going to be having that conversation, sometimes that open and honest conversation. And as the slide dictates, there might be some really prominent, interesting, honest discussion. And I think this is what's sometimes needed and necessary. So we've got a fantastic panel that have come together to have that discussion. And also, if at any point you want to throw a question in the chat box, get involved, engage. If you need to have a break or a timeout, please certainly do that. If you need to turn your screen off, it's a session for us all. We want to have an open, honest conversation, and I'm really thrilled with the panel that we've put together. So I'm looking forward to the next hour and a half.
Fantastic, exactly. And now to our panelists. We're lucky to have such a wonderful lineup. We're going to introduce them in turn, and we're going to give them each a quick fire question just to sort of warm us all up. So Lucy May is a top WSL Women's Championship referee, and she's also the head of inclusion at Newcastle United. Hey Lucy, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Very good, thank you. So tell us the best game you've officiated and why.
Ooh, probably the Women's FA Cup final at Wembley Stadium. I think anything that's at Wembley Stadium, you walk out and it's just that pitch, it's that stadium, it's just magical. I think whether you're a player, a coach, a referee, it's games like that you drive for and that motivate you. And yeah, that was pretty special.
Absolutely. And did you make any controversial decisions, or did it all go smoothly?
Probably about the only game I never have made a controversial decision. But no, went really well.
Excellent. Thank you, Lucy. Looking forward to hearing from you.
So next up, Mark Marshall, who is a teammate of mine. We played together at Barnet, what seems like many, many moons ago. Mark is currently a winger at Northampton Town, but has also played for a number of top EFL clubs. He can score goals, he can create goals. And actually, I had a conversation recently and Mark Marshall's name's come up because someone said to me, who's the most underrated player you've ever played with? And I said, Mark Marshall. I'm not saying that just because he's here, but I did say that because he is one of those players that sometimes goes under the radar. But I think if you look at the amount of teams he's played against at a great, great level, I think it says everything about Mark Marshall, the player. But Mark, I have to ask you a question. Can you tell us the best game you have ever played? The best experience, the best game. It might have been a personal experience in terms of your performance or the team's win. Throughout your career, you've had so many great games and great events at big stadiums. What's been the one standout for you?
I think playing at Wembley. I played there a few times, but playing at Wembley and getting promoted and contributing, it's a privilege to do that. You know, as a child, you have this childhood dream of playing there, and to fulfill it is incredible. In the moment, it's an amazing feeling, and then afterwards, it feels like a blur.
Well, it's listen, you've had that experience, and you said you played at Wembley a number of times. Have you won every single time? Have you won and lost? Have you been on the bench at times at Wembley?
I've won and I've lost, and I've not been included. And I can tell you about all the different emotions that I felt in those moments. But just like I said, just going there and, you know, experiencing the atmosphere, experiencing the pitch, you know, thinking, oh my God, I was playing in the park the other day and now I'm in the National Stadium. It's incredible.
Wow. So you've literally experienced Wembley like extensively. You've won, you've lost, and you've been dropped. So I hope it was in an order where you got dropped, you lost, and then you won. So you worked towards.
And that's exactly what it was. That's exactly what it was.
There you go. No struggle, no progress.
It was
Tracy.
Go on.
Sorry, Mike. Go on, carry on. I want to hear about Wembley more. Go on.
No, I was just saying, you know, when I was dropped twice, and then I played. Sorry. So I think I've been there 4 or 5 times. So the first time was in the stands, second time lost, third time dropped, fourth time won. So I won twice. So with Charlton and Northampton, and lost twice with Swindon and Bradford.
Okay, Mark, now you're showing off. Now you're actually showing off. You played at Wembley more times than some of us have been into our local stadiums. But thank you, Marcy, for that. So next panelist, Tracy Brown, co-chair of Chelsea Pride. Now, Chelsea having a absolutely smashing season on all fronts. My question to you, Tracy, who has been your favourite ever men and women's player of all time?
Okay, does it have to be Chelsea player, or we're just talking in general?
Well, if I'm saying favourite player, it could be from another team. Doesn't have to be Chelsea.
But for the men's team, I'm actually going to go back to my childhood. I'm going to go Van Basten, because growing up, he was fantastic to see. And I was completely addicted to that bright orange T-shirt that the Netherlands wore when I was growing up. So I'd mostly say him for the men's team. There's been a lot of fantastic players around. But for the women's team, for the women's game, I'm going to go for two of my players. And that's going to be Magda, our captain, and Pernilla, who actually, from a mental health point of view, on coming out day, opened up their Twitter account to people struggling to come out. So it's not just about what you do on the pitch, it's about what you do off the pitch. And for that alone, them two shone for me. So I definitely say them two.
No, it's something to be proud of. I mean, obviously the club are having amazing success, but when you see some of the off-pitch stuff like that, sometimes, you know, you realise that there's no coincidence, because the best clubs do the best things across the board.
Yeah, and I mean, they've been fantastic. I mean, our women's team in general, as far as the quality work goes, are just phenomenal. But as a captain, she literally leads by example. So Magda Eriksson is just fantastic.
Thank you, Tracy.
Thank you, Tracy. Now to Troy. Troy Townsend. Now, I've got to say this. I have to kind of declare my bias. Troy is one of my favourite human beings. So I'm just going to put that out there before we start. So no offence to anybody else. Troy Townsend is head of player engagement at Kick It Out. He supports aspiring individuals looking to break into the football industry by developing mentoring conferences and supplying work placements regionally and nationally. Troy's son, Andros, currently plays for Crystal Palace and has got 13 England caps. Welcome, Troy.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you. You made me emotional right at the very beginning, by the way. So
that's all right. We'll go with that. It's going to be all about this. We might get emotional tonight, but that's okay. So we'll take our time. Tell us your favourite ever goal. I know that's hard. Oh, wow. And your favourite ever Andros goal. So I'm going to give you a choice. You can pick a favourite Andros goal and then a favourite goal.
Oh, wow. Okay. Tracy, I'm loving that Marco van Basten shout, by the way, which leads me to a Marco van Basten goal, yeah? I'm nicking it a little bit, but it was obviously the goal in the final of the Euros against Russia. An incredible volley. Just something that it's one of those things that you kind of think, I can do that. So you run out, you get your ball and you think, yeah, someone cross it over and I'll do it. And you never hit the target. So an incredible goal. I can't say that's my favorite error goal, but because Tracy mentioned Marco van Basten, it kind of came to mind straight away. My favorite Andros goal. I hope there's no Man City supporters on, but if there is, I don't really care. December 2018, and obviously that strike at the Etihad, in a victory that was just, unbelievable. It was an amazing experience being there. It's an amazing experience almost watching him score it. It was very hard to watch at the time. A volley from that distance was just unbelievable. And it was the thing that kind of, it's kind of every parent's dream to see their child score something like that in a stadium like that against the champions. It's just dreams are made of. And by the way, I've left that his goal for England there as well. So his first goal for England. But if you really want to quantify them, his goal for England was unbelievable because it was his debut, and it was just amazing to witness, to see, to kind of put him on that platform. But the goal against Man City, you can't compare, unfortunately. Not even Vincent Kompany's strikers, Wrighty and Shearer, was saying was better than his because of the context. Absolute no chance, by the way.
Roy, I've just got a quick story on that. So at the FSA, when I first joined, I started to do the embassies and go around the world with England and doing a lot of work with their fans. And Kev got me a ticket to the Italy game, but it was in the stand. But I started talking to the Italian FA, and they gave me a really good ticket. So I sat in this beautiful box, and I was sat there and I felt on top of the world. And I remember that goal that Andros scored, and I just thought to myself, I obviously thought of you, because I thought, wow, to have your son score a goal at international level against those players on that pitch in that stadium. And I mean, I was sitting on my own with all these Italian FA sort of members around me, but I mean, yes, he scored an amazing goal against Man City, but that was just an amazing time, and it did make me a little bit emotional because I kept thinking of you those days in the office when we're talking, and then he goes and scores a goal like that for England. So it's an amazing.
I don't. Any parent who wants their child to achieve, no matter whatever field that they're driving themselves into, it's an emotional experience anyway. Just watching them carry out their dreams. I don't know. This game is like no other. The game of football, the experience of it as a fan, the experience of it as a player. I didn't make the grade, but then you know, as officials, as we've got on here as well. But just that thing of seeing your child, you know, excel at the thing that you absolutely love is undescribable, if you want me to be totally honest. So yeah, we've had some really, really special moments. But for me, every time he walks on the football field is a special moment, to be totally honest. So I can hear, you know, I know Mark will say that, I know you would have said that, Anwar, you know, as players, but you know, Lucy as a, you know, as an official as well. They're just special moments that you, I would say, Mark, mine are not a blur. I kind of remember them all. Maybe it's because I wasn't playing, and maybe it's because I was watching, but I remember almost every minute of every game of every time he's been. So yeah, real good moments.
I think it was just in the Wembley moments, you know. they're just so surreal for me personally, anyways. You know, even my journey into football and just not going through the academy system, and sometimes being in the park at the age of 18, 19 and thinking, am I going to do it? Do you know what I'm saying? And just being born in the Caribbean, and not saying it was nothing to do with any sort of lifestyle, but knowing what I came from, and just to having those experiences, like, wow, like, you know, you have those moments where you think, is this even real? So amazing. That's where the blur kicks in, you know, where you're like, oh my God, this is surreal. But they're incredible, you know, and like you said, for any child or any parent seeing their child live their dream, and for any individual living their dream, it's amazing. Whatever field it is, whether it's football, whatever, it just gives you that sense of fulfillment.
Yeah, absolutely. And funnily enough, talking of being proud, when Anwar jumped in there after you'd mentioned Vincent Kompany, Troy, I thought he was going to talk about his goal and ask us why we were talking about that. So for those of you who don't know that, I'm sure someone can find it and post it in the chat. Anwar did score a very good goal when he was actually playing for Rainbow Rovers, which was an LGBTQ plus team that was playing some legends, and it was a good goal. But I genuinely thought that's what he was going to say when he jumped in.
But apparently there was fans of his former clubs, though, Chris, that said that he'd never done that for us, so they were questioning him a little bit now.
Okay, so let's sort of kick off now. So obviously this week is Mental Health Awareness Week. I'm going to ask this question to each of you. Start with Lucy. And Lucy, it's Mental Health Awareness Week. So what does sort of mental health as a term and a concept mean to you?
I think for me, it's probably something that more so over the last 12, 15 months has become on my radar more than it probably ever has before. I think when you look at everything that's happened over the last 12, 15 months, not just with COVID, but with everything that's happened around EDI, with your whole rota, and I call it a rota, it's not really a rota, but your whole life changes. And for me, my life revolved around football, whether as a referee or whether as my day job. And for a little while, for that to be taken away, it's probably the first time I've sat there and thought about things, and it gives you time. And when you're a busy person and you're not used to time, it's not always a good thing. So I think for me, it's about raising awareness until it is no different to talk about your mental health as it is to a physical injury. Yeah. There is no difference.
Yeah, I think that's important. I think we're slowly getting to a place where we can talk about mental health in a similar way as you might talk about your physical health. But I still think there's potential sort of stigma attached to it, which is why it's really important that we're having this conversation today. Mark, same question to you.
Yeah, for me, it's, you know, apart from it being Mental Health Week, it's close to me because one of my brothers suffers really badly with mental health, and it's been for many years. And, you know, just to see in the early stages how my parents, especially my dad, struggled with it because they had such a good relationship, you know, to like you said, to have that stigma around, you know, that a person who is going through something and, you know, being scared potentially to talk about it because you might feel like the odd one out. You know, it's something that we need to look at, and we need to make more people feel comfortable in speaking about it. Because I think that, you know, a lot of people they don't feel comfortable talking about some of the issues that they have that contributes to their mental well-being.
What do you think? How do you think we can sort of change the narrative so people are more comfortable? I know things like this might help, but you know, we haven't got the whole country sadly on this webinar. So what are some of the other things you think we might be able to do?
I think more people need to be open to the fact that, you know what, you might be able to deal with something and you might think, okay, well, you know, this is quite simple and I'm able to deal with it, you know, whether it be a loss, whether it be a disappointment. But you got to understand that we're not all built the same. So you have a level of sympathy towards different people and understand that, you know what, you might be able to cope with something, but someone might not be able to cope with it as good as you. So if you're able to cope with it, you need to be open and, you know, don't make that person feel, you know, belittled or uncomfortable when they're trying to talk to you about something. And I think that's one of the biggest problems sometimes. People don't feel like they can speak about things that they're going through because there might be, you know, people might laugh about them, there might be stereotypes, they might, you know.
Yeah. So
I think definitely, you know, being open and understanding to the fact that, you know what, everyone's not built the same. And, you know, some individuals can deal with different situations better. And some, you know, they haven't got that mental capacity and they need help. And you might be that shoulder or you might be that person that they confine in. And, you know.
On that part, I mean, just come in there. Sorry, Chris. I mean, obviously, me and you talk openly and honestly, Mark, and I know you've come on this session because you want to help and get involved in our work and support, which is amazing. But what I think your career and you, what amazes me still to this day, and a lot of people on the call might not know, is, you know, you've come from literally non-league. You're playing in the park at 18, 19, and a lot of players have come through the system. And you get into the big levels and you smashing it, but then you have a ban for 2 years. You're out of the game for 2 years, and then when that happens to any football player, you're actually thinking this could destroy a player. You know, managers are going to write people off. You know, you've got to that level, and then you've missed out on the game for 2 years. But then to come back and, as you said, play at Wembley 5 times, Millwall, Charlton, like that's why. I mean, I've always said that you're probably one of the strongest people I've ever met, because a lot of people at that point during that time, it's a difficult time for you. How you come back and had an amazing career, I just think is amazing. And I've always been interested. I know how we've had conversations, but you know, dealing with something like that as a player, because people don't see it. They see you in the stadiums, but they don't see what's been a journey like to get there, because it's not always been plain sailing, is it? Especially for you.
Yeah, not at all. I mean, even before we go on to speak about, you know, the band and stuff like that, I think just even trying to get there, especially when you love something and, you know, you're so dedicated and, you know, you might be around people or you look and you think, you know what, as my time passed, because a lot of people tell you if you're not in an academy by 16, it might not happen. And so you start questioning it, and then, you know, you get anxiety, you think, is this ever going to happen? But I think you just got to keep on pressing on. You got to keep on keeping on. My thing was, you know what, I want this. So because I wanted it, I was trying to put myself in that position to get it. So I'd be going to the park every day by myself. I'd get managers' numbers. I'd call them multiple times. And I would say, yeah, you know, I think I'm, you know, I've got the ability to do this. Would you give me a trial? Blah, blah, blah. I even picked up my football boots. I went to Millwall. I never forget. I went to Millwall, me and one of my friends, and, you know, we was like to the manager, look, we went to a training ground. I was 16, 17 at this time. And I said, can I have a trial, please? And they said, you know what, fair play to you for coming. We can't give you a trial right now, but we're going to send someone to come and watch you. And they did send someone to come and watch me. The game that they watched weren't very good, so I had to start again. Then I went on trial, and I was so nervous, even though I was working so hard to get there. I was so nervous when I was there, and the manager said to me, you know what, I can see that you've got ability, but every time the games are starting, it's like you know, you're a different player. And I don't want to let you go because I could tell there's somebody there. So he gave me another game, and it was like, okay, the nerves even got worse because, you know, it's like last chance saloon. Didn't do very well. So I had to go back to the drawing boards. And then eventually it happened for me. Started playing. Then obviously, like you said, at Barnet, with good intentions of trying to improve myself, taking all the steps to make sure that whatever is going in my body is all right. And then you let yourself down ultimately because you consume something and you get let down by people around you because, you know, they're there to advise you in the right way. And then you go and you get the bang itself. That was probably one of the hardest periods of my life in terms of, you know, me getting anxiety. I was getting heart palpitations. And then all of a sudden, one day I said to myself, you know what? I said, this has got to stop. I literally said to myself, this has got to stop. I remember one night I was sleeping or trying to sleep, and my heart just started beating out of rhythm, like beating and stopping, beating and stopping. And literally, I couldn't sleep. And in the morning, I made a conscious decision in myself. And I said, you know what? This has got to stop. I'm going to take all responsibility for what's happened. And I'm going to go to the park. I'm going to train every day. I used to go to the park 4 days a week, gym 3 days a week. So I used to go gym, park, gym, park, gym, park. And I said, you know what? I'm not going to let this define me. And I managed to come back. And at the time, like you said, I was absolutely flying. And I managed to come back. And even when you come back from that adversity, the challenges that you face, even when you're in the game, you know, I don't think people understand how hard it is for a player when, you know, you're not being selected, you're working hard, you're thinking, oh my God, like, you know, I'm working hard, why am I not being selected? Then even when you're selected, after all that hard work, it might not go as well as you planned, so you've got to go again. And then you might have a good game on Saturday, and on Tuesday you have a bad game. And then you're like, you know what, you got to take this all into your stride and you got to balance yourself, because football, it makes emotions fluctuate so much that if you're not able to balance yourself, it could send you up the bend. And that's why so many players come out of the game with mental problems, because the game itself causes you to be so imbalanced, your emotions to be so imbalanced because of the up and down, the so-called changing room banter, the need to fit in, you know, playing on a Saturday, not playing, being released, having to look for another club. So, you know, it's just one of those ones. In myself, I just thought to myself, you know what? And even now, my approach is, I'm going to practice, I'm going to work hard, and I'm going to make sure that when I go out there, I give it my all. And that's it. You know, I also try to do things away from football to take away my focus from football, because I think for myself personally, and I can't speak for everyone else, I think one thing that I devised in my brain is that, okay, well, when you enjoy football the most, you have to keep it a hobby. So I try to keep it a hobby, and I try to do other things outside, like studying and different things, to keep that, you know, those are the hard stuff. Football's the easy stuff. This is my enjoyment. And I guess that's what's kind of helped me to maintain for so long, because, you know, the adversities, just having like a strategy of, you know, how I want to, you know, separate football from normal life. And to be honest, it's helped me massively, you know.
Thank you, Mark.
Wow, that's amazing, Mark. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. I think it's really, I don't know, I think it's really important that you're so sort of open about that, and about some of the things that, you know, that you found difficult. And I think there's probably a lot of people on this call that can recognize that middle of the night, hearing your heart, feeling anxious, and you know, not knowing what to do about it. So yeah, thank you so much.
No worries.
Tracy, same question to you.
I don't remember what the question was.
It's Mental Health Awareness Week. What does mental health mean for you?
Okay, Mental Health Week for me. Well, for someone who has had a mental health diagnosis herself for, it seems, many years, without giving my age away, to me, it's about education, and it's about breaking the stigma of mental health. I think the bonus, if there is a bonus, out of the last year and COVID is more people actually are beginning to understand the struggles that you could have with your mental health. So actually it's made most people speak openly about a subject which is still in sometimes is a taboo. I have a diagnosis of schizoaffective disorder, which sounds like a complete mouthful. It's basically just me being greedy. It's the psychotic part of schizophrenia, and it's the depressive part of bipolar, and it's putting the two of them together. And years ago, I would not have dreamt of coming on something like this and being so open. But years of struggling, years of being able to cope by going to football and having that something to look forward to and meeting up with friends, so there was always a focal point. I realised that, you know, having people to speak to is really vital. So for me now, I'm quite open to say this is what I have and start a conversation off about my diagnosis and anyone else's and any struggles they may have. But yeah, the bonus of this year, I think, is more people now even understand what anxiety is, of just not being able to go out, not being able to go to the shops, let alone go to a football ground and play and watch. So for me, it's definitely education and breaking the stigma.
Thanks, Tracy, and thanks for being so open. I mean, I don't know how if it's useful or if you're willing to talk about it, about what your diagnosis means, because I don't necessarily know myself what schizophrenia or like how they manifest themselves and how you because I mean you and I are friends. Don't necessarily know that.
Yeah.
Never been something that's come up in our friendship. Mostly she tells me things about how much better Chelsea are than Spurs, but that's a whole other thing. So I don't know if that's something that you might share.
Absolutely. So if we break it down, so I say it's schizoaffective disorder. The schizophrenia side is actually a bit that most people, I guess, would think about if they think about schizophrenia. It's actually the psychotic symptoms. So every single day, no matter what I do, who I'm chatting to, where I am, I see and hear things that no one else sees.
Right.
And a lot of people get completely freaked out when you tell them that, to be fair. But that's the whole point of doing something like this. It opens up people to have those awkward conversations. With bipolar, it's the depressive side. So and that's definitely been visible, I guess, more over the last year, where you can go into very deep depressions. For me, the psychotic part is definitely something that is much more prevalent. It's there every single day. It's something I can't escape. I take antipsychotic medication and depressive medication just to get me through. And as you said, Chris, you've known me for quite some time, and you sort of get used to putting a smile on when you need to, and just getting on even when you have those really tough days. But hopefully by having open conversations, you're able to, when you're having really bad days, say to someone, I'm struggling today, because that's definitely important, that you can actually say to people, I'm actually having a really bad day, this is why. And sometimes it's just to say, that's why I'm quiet, rather than, you do get to the point, I admit, where people go to invite you to things, you cancel last minute because you're in panic, and then people stop inviting you, and maybe they don't know the reasons why. And I know a lot of people over the years have struggled with just that. So I'm always open to questions about my diagnosis, and anyone asking anything, really. The only, as I said, reason I'm here is the only way we learn is by having conversations.
No, thank you, and thanks so much for being so open. And I think that's, something that I've certainly noticed in the last couple of years is more people saying, I'm actually not having a very good day today, and that others are open to that. And to what Mark said, it's like, we're not just sort of going, oh, what are you on about, or whatever. Actually, you're listening to people and understanding that someone's response to something isn't necessarily like your own. But yeah, thanks so much. And thank you to everyone who's sharing in the chat as well. I think it's really, really important. Troy.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff there as well, but
Yeah.
what does it mean to you?
Do you want me to be really honest?
Yeah.
And I know you do, so I know the answer to that.
I do.
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know because the experiences that I've had in my lifetime, the struggles that I had at an early age. I've never spoken about my mother before publicly. And I know that from the age of about 9, that my mum had severe depression. That meant that she couldn't look after me as a child, but she was the only parent in my house, and struggled mentally. So I saw my mum turn from a very vibrant woman, very active woman, a woman that would punish me quite a lot as well, by the way, as I was a youngster, turn into a woman that needed to close all the curtains in the house, didn't want anyone to see her, tried to set fire to the house, so tried to kill herself. I'm picking up on a point that Tracy said there, heard things that no one else heard, thought things were going on in our house. And as a youngster, that was very, very hard to comprehend, very hard to understand. And I didn't understand it. There was no way I could understand it. There was no way I could deal with it. I had an older brother. I don't think I know he didn't understand as well. My personal struggles came from football. My personal struggles came from knowing that football was no longer going to be my job, my dream job. It was my dream job. It's the only thing I ever wanted to do. I got released twice in a short space of time. And I struggled massively, and I didn't know what it was or what I was experiencing at that time. And it's only recently that I've been able to talk about my experiences back in those days, because I think both Mark and Anmar have mentioned it, that stigma, that being open to saying that you're struggling, that kind of, thoughts that you have that you don't want anyone else to know about, you don't want to share because, you're being deemed as weak, particularly, in this game, and I struggled for many years, and the way I'll say got over it, but the way I dealt with it was walking out of football and into a gang, because I'm not a gang as such, but I wanted to be loved. I wasn't getting love from my mother anymore. I wasn't getting love from the game of football. So I wanted to be loved, or at least a part of a group that I felt like I could be something. And it was the worst possible group to attach myself to. But it kind of started to align with the fact that there were things going on in my mental space that I wasn't in control of and I wasn't aware of. And probably only up to a few years ago that I could even describe what was going on. Unfortunate situations happen. I've lost a son. Suicidal thoughts have been part of my life for 20 years, I would say. How do you manage it? How do you get better at things like that? So I think I've struggled for all that period of time, and then to witness my own son talk about his mental health, and knowing that I have another son who struggles as well, has been a difficult thing to comprehend and difficult thing to kind of understand, So I don't know what it is. I don't know. I manage my own space. I don't believe I manage it very well, but there's that Troy that you see on the outside, and then there's the Troy on the inside, So it's a massive struggle.
Yeah, and funnily enough, when I was looking at these questions, I thought to myself, how would I answer this? And actually, I'm not just saying it. I thought, I don't know the answer either. But I think what's incredible is just thank you so much for sharing that, because I don't think we can underestimate the impact that having this conversation is going to have to everybody that's listening, that it's just had on me. And, I can see it's been that was a hard thing for you to say, Troy. So thank you. I didn't want it to be that difficult, but it does matter. And I think it matters that you've said it, because there are things like, for me, there are sort of some things I've never spoken about my family. I'm not going to do it now. But I've thought about it, and I don't know what it would feel like if I did. So thanks for sharing that story.
You know what, Chris? 3 years ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I would never have been able to come on this platform and show what I class as my personal weakness, my kryptonite, whatever you'd want to be. So I know that I'm making strides.
Yeah.
I know that I'm doing better at stages, but I also feel the strength and the power in and understanding mental well-being to the point where I don't know if it's words from me that will help someone else, or at least open up a conversation. And I think what I've done more importantly is I didn't know how to broach it with people. I didn't know how to speak in this space. So I used to write down my thoughts. And I left school with absolutely nothing, by the way, because the dream was always going to be kicking the ball. And when I started to write down my thoughts and share them on social media platforms, honestly, the wave of not only support, but just people sharing their personal stories as well, I kind of knew that I kind of was on the right lines. So in sharing my experiences, I'm helping other people. Never seen myself in that way. Never felt I was particularly strong enough to be able to deal with all of that. But it has. And like I said, if it means that I can help someone, I'm not frightened of being emotional anymore. I'm not frightened of the judgment. I'm not frightened of people saying, oh, I saw Troy cry yesterday. It doesn't matter. There's more important things. So, yeah.
I think
just to come on there. Sorry, Chris.
No, please.
Just from my experiences, like, it got me thinking, you know, speaking to Tracy and hearing Tracy and Mark and Troy and Lucy, it's like I came into this industry and I was, you know, I met Troy, like I met Tracy, and I've worked with Mark and Lucy. And, you know, the world and the industry that we work in around equality, you know, I see what you do, Troy. You're fighting fires every single day. Like, you're in an uphill battle. People don't see how many trains we both get on and off. People don't see, you know, people talk about education. They don't see the young players you're speaking to on a daily basis. And it's like everyone has so many challenges that everyday life throws at you. And actually, you're actually oblivious at times of what people are going through. And you're just expecting them, you got to deal with that because that's what's happened. Mark Marshall, you know, you're not in a team, deal with it. You know, Troy, you know, there's all this stuff online. You've got to go on Sky and talk about it again. And all this is happening and it's tough. And that in itself is so strenuous and challenging. Yet sometimes I think we all forget, and even me, you know, I work with Troy every single day and we're 100 miles per hour. But sometimes you do actually forget how is someone today? What kind of day are they having? What kind of month are they having? And sometimes you don't even know what they're actually going through or have been through. And a lot of the things that we've discussed today, you know, I had a call with Tracy after the last webinar. And Tracy said, look, I want to really help and get involved. And she opened up about why. And again, it's something I was learned. But again, I would never have known that. So that's why I think even if it's in your close friends, family, work colleagues, I think it is really important, because what I've learned around this equality space is if we're ever going to move forward and get positive change, we're going to have to do it together. If you work in isolation, nothing's going to change. So if you've got allies and friends, I think it is really important that we understand our allies and friends. We understand what they may have been through, what they may be going through, and accept that and acknowledge that and actually work together. And it just got me thinking, listening to everyone, because, you know, we work in these environments and that, but how do we know? You could sit next to someone at work and you don't know what they're going through. I mean, Lucy, just to bring you in, I mean, is that something you would agree with? Because you're working for a Premier League club, you know, could be colleagues of yours, and people just don't know what they're going through. And it's that decision you make as an individual. Do you express that? And as Troy said, sometimes by expressing that, it's a sign of weakness.
I think it's so hard, both as working at a Premier League football club, you know, you're under constant scrutiny. You have no control over the feel of that club for 99% of the time, because it's results driven. If you've got happy fans, then, you know, your Monday morning's a little bit different. So if you lose, I mean, Monday morning after Friday's result, great. But you then add into that the refereeing, and it can be brutal. So it probably, like anybody, I've had weeks where, you know, I've gone to a game, I've made a decision that 6 cameras have picked up live on TV. That's wrong. It's wrong. I know it's wrong. I don't need to be told by the media, by the fans, by Twitter, by Instagram, by Facebook, by the press that I'm wrong, that I'm bad, that I'm this, that I'm that. And then you go into work and everyone loves football, so everyone wants to talk about the game that you did that was brilliant at the weekend, but actually, did you know you got that wrong? Yeah, no, I got it wrong. And in the same sense that it can give you these huge highs, the lows are lonely, they're hard, and it's probably only for me in the last 12 months that I've had the strength to stand up and say, actually, I need help, I'm not okay, and I need somebody to talk to. And you know, huge kudos to my employer, Newcastle. They are fantastic when it comes to that side of things. And I think what I really struggle with is what people think are banter and what people think their opinions are relevant to you, and that they feel like they should share those opinions with you personally. You know, I'm never going to change what the press say. I'm never going to change what a commentator says. I'm never going to change, you know, what 5,000 people think of a decision I've made. But you know what, it isn't human. And there is going to be no person harder on themselves walking out that stadium knowing that something's wrong than me. And, you know, I got something quite badly wrong in October last year. That 180-mile drive home, I had to stop so many times because I turned on the radio and they were talking about it. I looked at my phone and my notifications were going through the roof. And I just ended up stopping at every service station on the way home over 180 miles. And I think it took me about 7 or 8 hours to get home because I couldn't concentrate on anything. My mind, I felt like I was one breath away from a panic attack at every point. You know, what are people thinking of me? And it's hard because 9 times out of 10 you don't know it's coming, and you don't have the opportunity to prepare yourself for those lows or those highs. And I think probably social media is a bit to blame in the fact that I'm guilty of it. You know, I'll put highs in social media, but my gosh, I'm not going to stick those days on where I don't want to get out of my pajamas, sat in bed, because I know I've got to do an evaluation, or I know I've got things wrong, but I've got to watch it all over again. But I will share those videos of me walking out at Wembley that felt unreal, or, you know, the buzz that you've got a certain fixture or a certain appointment. You know, that it's so different. And this season, more than ever, having no supporters in stadiums, I've really struggled with that.
Thank you, Lucy. I mean, again, it's these discussions, and I think this is why Terrace Talk exists, because sometimes it's being able to talk. And, you know, when you work in the industry and sometimes it is 100 miles per hour, when do you get the time to slow down and actually have that conversation? I mean, I know how busy we all are. And I think sometimes there's different ways of coping. There's different ways that benefit other people. And it's about finding that. And sometimes you don't know. Where do you get the help? And that's what this is all about. It's about helping each other, signposting each other to the relevant organizations to look at long-term help. And I mean, Mark, from a playing perspective, so listen, I've played with you and you've had some amazing games, but when there are lows, when there is a bad game, because it's almost like, or a relegation, you know, we're at the business end of a season, your team gets relegated. I mean, as a player, yes, you can, you know, some fans think like, well, they can move teams and, you know, I'm here and I'm a fan of this club all the time, but the lows, playing bad, relegations, I mean, I can say from my own experiences that they are hard to deal with. Would you agree?
Of course. I mean, like you said, the lows of not playing, the lows of being the relegation scrap, the lows of being relegated, you know, just the levels of anxiety that you feel. You know, you might be going out of contract and you're thinking, oh my God, if we get relegated, you know, no one's going to give us any deal. Is the club going to give me any deal? You know what I mean? How are the fans going to, you know, comment, as you say, on social media, you know? But I think externally, people don't see all these things, you know, and these are added pressures. And obviously, like, I'm at the back end of my career, so I learned to manage myself a bit better. But can you imagine the young kids experiencing this, you know, that haven't got that ability to manage their emotions, you know, the levels of anxiety, you know, playing badly, you know, getting called this, getting called that, you know what I mean, not being able to sleep. You know, you have a game and you had a bad game and you're not sleeping for the whole night. You know what I mean? You're not sleeping for the whole night. You don't want to talk to anyone. You know, you have your friends, your family, your partner, your kids, They're like, oh, I just don't want to deal with anyone, and then everyone suffers. You know,
And that's a key point. That's a key point, Mark, because I think, you know, it's great that we can talk about some of our individual issues that we are dealing with, and sometimes it's hard to deal with them because are we dealing with them? But then it's the effect also that it has on your friends and your family and your work colleagues, and it's almost like you're oblivious to that because you're in that battle with yourself, and sometimes you're oblivious to everything else around you. I mean, Tracy, with your journey, how has that been for you in terms of how, you know, keeping that to yourself and how it involves colleagues, or have you involved colleagues? Because again, it's a daily struggle for you.
Yeah, I mean, I think, to be quite honest, if I go way back, I started hearing voices when I was about 7-8 years old. It's been my whole entire adult life. And picking up on something that Troy said, my mother also had mental health issues, and would use drink as a way of that was her way of handling things. So I'm an only child, and my father was also disabled, so I felt like I couldn't actually be open. So my young years, I kept everything to myself, and then that become a bad habit of never speaking and keeping more and more to yourself. And then I would pick up bad habits, so I would then drink. I would do stuff that was destructive. And I've had in my life, being extremely honest, 5 failed suicide attempts. And it's only maybe the last 3 or 4 years that my point of view have been open around me to why I can be so quiet, why I can shut people away, has happened. So the closest people to me have been, up until tonight, have been the people who really know about my diagnosis. They may know the words, but they don't really know the ins and outs of what goes on in my life. I have days where I can't even open the curtains. I have days where I will get up out of bed, feed the cats, go back to bed, put the duvet over my head, and not speak to anyone. I have days where I want to self-harm. I want to eat. I don't want to eat. I don't touch drink anymore for those said reasons. Openness is everything, and being open and feeling like you can be open is everything. You spoke about earlier on about, it's been brought up already, about, you know, social media and the role it plays. Chris will know this. When you run an LGBTQ plus supporters group, you have the good and you have the very bad when it comes from so-called fans of football. I locked my Twitter account down for years because I had death threats, rape threats, and everything online just for running the group. So I shut my Twitter account down. It was only about a year ago I reopened that account, going, you know what? I'm not going to let anyone bully me. I'm actually going to stand up and very, very proud of myself and every aspect of my life, and be very open about every aspect of my life. And the biggest part of who I am, it's not the only part, but a big, huge part of who I am, is my mental illness, because it does affect me on a daily basis. I do struggle every day. It's 1 step forward sometimes and 2 steps back. And then you'll have a great day where everything goes perfect, and then the next day you're back to being under the duvet and you can't cope. It's about surrounding yourself with people you can trust, and about educating everyone else so they actually understand what you go through. You don't need to know everything, but just enough to understand if someone's really struggling, that's okay. And it's okay to have a bad day, because even if you don't have a mental health issue, we all have bad days. And it's just accepting that maybe this is just one of those days, and not holding it against yourself and saying, well, I failed today. No, it's just a bad day. We'll try again tomorrow. And that is extremely important.
Absolutely. Thank you. It's interesting. There's a question from Sash from Maidenhead Spurs in the questions around normalizing mental health, and saying that obviously normalizing mental health can help reduce stigma. So I might ask any, if you've all got an answer to this, that's great. But what do you think? What's the one thing that you would do or like to see to help encourage more open conversations? Has anyone got any thoughts on that?
Dogs,
yeah.
the dogs have.
Wow.
I think for me, it's not something that's going to change overnight. I think it's about having events like this and encouraging. And I know for a long time before I went and sat in my manager's office and opened up an awful lot, that I watched from the side. I watched from the side with people who I knew were being open about it on social media, and I looked, and I think that probably is the most powerful thing for me, and that don't ever underestimate the people that are watching you in a role model capacity to see how you're dealing with something, because actually they're looking at how you're dealing with it as to how they can. And I think it's about allyship and making sure that you listen. And that I tried to open up so many times to people who I wanted to open up to, who were close to me, who didn't listen. Or it would be like, oh, Luce, you're just having a bad day. Or I don't know why you listen to them. I don't know why you check social media. I don't know why you let it bother you. I don't know either, but it does. So listen, just listen. And it took a long time for me watching from the sidelines before I did that. So I think it's about openness, and it's about offering that support. And the more we can do that, the better. And it shouldn't be something we're ashamed of. Everybody has mental health, whether it's good or bad. It should not be something that we tar with any kind of brush. But I think we all have an individual responsibility as human beings to remember that day to day, one word, one look, one message, one email can make or break someone's day. So kindness is everything. And if it isn't going to add value and it doesn't have impact in a positive way, is it necessary, and is it appropriate, and do you really need to say it or send it?
So openness, listening, kindness, and those are things that hopefully can encourage more conversations there. Troy, have you anything to add here?
Just thinking of the industry we work in, and openness, kindness, and all, those really positive words tend not to exist, or are forgotten. I shouldn't say don't exist, are forgotten. Particularly at moments of, pressure, because it's a pressured environment. But I kind of go back to, I eventually went to see a counsellor, which was probably about, my best friend passed 4 and a bit years ago. Seeing that counsellor, which I'd never wanted to see before, I was told to see a counsellor when I lost my son, 20 years ago this year, and I refused. I bottled everything up, and I felt that I was strong enough to be able to deal with everything that people could throw at me. But we've all got cracks. There's something in us all where we feel we're made of kryptonite, but we're not, and there's a weakness in us all that we have to be honest with ourselves. And I think honesty is a massive thing here. It's something that I would never have felt of before, because I always felt that, I'm Troy Townsend, I'm strong enough to deal with anything that everyone throws at me. I don't care, bring it on. But the inside, actually, I realized that I was crying out for help without ever reaching out for help. I was looking for answers without knowing where I was going. And listen, I had 4 sessions in a short space of time and then never went back. I had 4 sessions in 2 weeks and never went back because the counsellor, who was very good, so nothing against the counsellor, took me back to the period of time that I hadn't even got over, which was 20 years ago, and brought up all those emotions again. So if I could go back, I would say to people, and remember, I'm just saying, I'm not urging anyone to do it, because we're all different and we do things in our own space. But I wish I could have spoken up, even to a close friend, 20 years ago, 25 years ago, when I was, even to someone to say, I think I'm struggling. I don't know what's wrong with me, but, I need support. I need guidance. I can empathize. Everybody said everything today. Drink was a major factor in my life. Having wild nights, just going out, because I felt that everything was okay. I felt that it then my troubles were no longer troubles, because I was almost in this atmospheric space where nothing else could impregnate, and I then believed that I was okay. But then you wake up in the morning and you realize, you know, the sun shines or whatever it may be, and you realize that no, all you did is you parked it for a little while to revisit it at another time, you know. So if I was to advise or anybody, and again, no one has to listen to what I say, is to try and seek that person for comfort, try and seek that person that actually you can sit down and have a conversation with, or even if you can't talk, and I think that's another thing, even if you can't express what you want to say, you know, even if it's silence. I've lived with silence for forever, you know, and I didn't feel that I had anybody around me that could help and support me through it. But now, honestly, I listen, I still don't think I'm great. This past year has been a roller coaster for everybody. It's brought up so many different things in my own mental space. Anwar mentioned about, you know, 100-mile-an-hour pace of the industry that we work in, and how we work, and, you know, and bumping into Anwar at a train station in Burnley as he's going one way and I'm going another, you know, and those kind of things. You remember those things because they stick in your memory about how fast paced your life is. And then I just think to myself sometimes, you know, when lockdown first happened, I was really grateful because it meant I could take things at a slower pace. But then it also exposed that mental space, exposed that thought process about all the other stuff. It gave it the energy that it needed to bring it all up again. So originally I was fine. And then after a while, it was difficult. It was a struggle. So again, and even at that period, what did I do then? I just delved into more work, or I tried to create work to try and create that empty space being no more. And honestly, Chris, I can only be me. I don't have the answers. I might help someone today. I might not. People might think, oh, he's a bit, but I don't know, you know. But if anyone can feed off of anything that any of us, and I'm listening to everybody else as well, and feeling incredibly empowered just by listening to their stories and resonating with their stories so much.
Can I just say, I mean, I was going to actually say it to you when I saw you in the office, Troy, but obviously it's been a long time since we've been in the office. But I remember my brother, Dean, he's a season ticket holder at Spurs, and he loves a podcast. And for years he's been listening to podcasts, but you should listen to podcasts. And I was like, anyway, he's eventually converted me. But I remember him saying to me recently, it must have been about 3 months ago, he said, I was on a train and I saw a podcast with Troy Townsend. So I listened to it because I know you work with him. And he goes, it was like 40 minutes long. And he said to me, I wanted to shake his hand because I cannot believe the honesty. And it was 40 minutes. It was a long time. He said, and that is what we're missing. And I know we've been negative about social media, but my brother's listened to that, and he was on the way to a train. And you know, you've done a podcast, and we got asked to do lots of stuff. But yeah. I think by being open, and you are bearing your soul a little bit, you know, and it is hard. But I don't think people realize the impact that could have on someone you will never ever meet. And I know there's people on this call that will, you know, and that's why I thought if we had this discussion, to have this panel, I know that people will sit here and they'll listen and go, wow, like this is, but everyone has a story. Every single individual you meet has a story, but we will never know it. You could live next to your neighbor for 50 years and they could be a scientist in the Guinness World Records, but I don't think we're open enough. I don't think we're talking enough. And kudos to you, Troy, because I was going to say the next time I see Troy in the office, I'll shake his hand. But again, it's going to be a while. But these are the things we have to deal with, and we live in an industry that is 100 miles per hour. So my question, because I know we are slowly running out of time, but how do we deal with it then? So, you know, the word well-being was mentioned a few times. And I know everyone has different ways of coping, of dealing with things. Marshy, if I could come to you, obviously you're the professional football player. You know, what advice could you give to anyone about how you kind of deal with your, not just your mental health, but do you have practices or things that help you in general? Because something, you know, small could trigger someone to maybe think, I'll try that.
To be fair, before you get onto that, I think we as people need to be more receptive and understanding. I think we need to start understanding that us as a human race, we share the same emotions. Someone might be happy about something and it might be huge, and someone might be happy about something and it might be small, but it's the same emotion. Do you know what I'm saying? So we need to start, understanding that we share the same emotions as each other, and that gives us great understanding of each individual. So you can kind of understand when a person's feeling sad, and if you have your child and they're feeling sad, what are you going to do? You're going to go over and you're going to ask them what's wrong, and you're going to be like, oh, how can I help? What do you need? And going over into adulthood, I think sometimes we lose that because we feel like, you've gone through the process of being a child, you've gone through all that, you should be able to deal with this. You understand? So we shy away from the fact that we are comforters as people, and we need to be more receptive and we need to listen to each other. I think one of the big factors that, are, stopping people from being there for each other is that we have our jobs and we become so materialistic that we're more focused on material things than on human love. Do you kind of get what I'm saying? And I think we need to go back to that and start thinking, you know what, I need him or her, he needs me. You know what I mean? So then we're bouncing off each other. We can talk to each other. We can confide in each other. We can do all of that. But on a personal note, I think for myself, I try to use gratitude as my base. So I'm never expectant. So I don't get disappointed too easily, because I'm more grateful than anything, because I wouldn't say I have no expectations, but I'm always surprised when someone does something for me. So my levels of gratitude makes me appreciate anything, and it simplifies the way I think. You understand? So I rarely get disappointed, and that works for me. You know what I mean? So I use that, when I'm playing football, whether I play 400 games, whenever the manager picks me, I'm like, yeah, I'm excited because he didn't have to do it. Because I know that if I get too disappointed because I'm not playing, it could spiral into me overthinking, your mind racing, all sorts of things. And then you never know what that could lead to. So because I look at it as, what, I feel so privileged. Even being on this podcast, being on this Zoom, I feel privileged. You didn't need to invite me here. And to hear all the things that each individual was saying, I'm like, wow, But like I said, my thing that I always go to is just being grateful. I'm very grateful, and it helps me to maintain a level of sanity because I have no expectation. And I say no expectation in a way of, what, it's always a surprise to me when someone does something good.
No, I totally appreciate that, Mark. And I think we really appreciate everyone being here because, listen, I know everyone's probably done a million Zooms, but this is really important to the FSA, our members, and what we're trying to encourage is that conversation. We want fans to be able to come on these Zooms, have conversations away in their own fan groups, put on these sessions themselves, and we would contribute to that. And listen, I mean, to get a player to do anything nowadays is really difficult. You have to go through 101 things. So obviously to have you here and obviously Troy and Lucy, I mean, you're talking about superstars in the industry, in the space, and I think what Tracy's done at Chelsea Pride is just fantastic. So for me, it's like, if I could pick a panel to have this discussion, I'm just grateful that you're here, and I know for a fact that everyone listening would definitely love the conversations. But if I can come to you, Lucy, just on that about well-being, because obviously with all the challenges, I mean, that journey home you talked about, I was thinking about that, and I mean, it's a long journey making even longer. So how do you cope?
If I'm honest, I didn't used to very well. I think, if I'm really, really honest, there's times where I've got home and I can't remember the journey because you're on autopilot, and it's different as a match official. We travel to games on our own. So good game or bad game, you have a long journey home in a car on your own, wherever you're traveling to. And I think for me now, I've got to a point where I go to podcasts. I specifically will turn my phone off. I don't want to know good and bad. I think there's a certain part of self-care that you have to look at, and I will now put barriers in place to protect myself after a game, and I will deal with what I need to deal with when I get home. I know now that there are people that I can call and say, I'm not all right. The deal that I've got with my mum is that she's got Find My Friends on, so she knows that I get home safely. But similarly, she knows I don't want to talk. I don't want to talk about the decisions. I want time to digest that. And I think it's working out what works for you in those situations. And I sometimes really will just sit. If I need to stop and I need to sit, I'll stop and sit. And I think that whole being big and brave thing has to come down. I think in the same sense that, you know, I give social media sometimes a bit of a battering for what it's given me over the years. You know, I've not had the easiest time sometimes with social media. There are some really good things on there too, and I will search certain hashtags. I will look for things that'll make me laugh. But yeah, the journeys are hard because and it's probably where I get a little bit jealous of teams. So they'll get on a team coach and go to the game. You know, if you lose as a team. Now, if I screw up, I screw up. Like, I haven't got 10 other people or a gaffer to have my back out or any of that. Like, if I make that mistake, that's on my shoulders. So yeah, I think it's certainly something, as the women's game's grown and the coverage is better and better, and there's more cameras and there's commentators and every game is live streamed, there's nowhere to hide, and you have to work out what works best for you. And for me, probably 9 times out of 10, for me, hiding away until I'm ready to talk is the way that I deal with things. But it's knowing that those people, that if I need to call and cry or rant or scream or ask for them just to not say anything negative, but just to tell me something that I've done well, then I know those people are there too.
Thank you, Lucy. Just a really interesting question, actually, on the Q&A about mental health support within the game. So one of the beautiful things about this Zoom call is that we've got people from various different aspects of the game. So listen, it's quite a long question, but if we could, as the question states, rate 1 to 10 of how well you think the support is for mental health as a player and in the administrative side of the game. If we go with Troy and Mark to answer that question again, just sort of quickly, because I thought it was a really good question to sort of say. But so in football, Troy, so you deliver education to young players. So in terms of playing, all about coaching, and also like the administrative side, what do you think? I mean, the question was a rating of 1 to 10. I mean, it's hard to put you on the spot, but is there a way we can answer that?
With 10 being the highest is good.
Yeah. 10 being the highest.
Yeah. I think on the administrative, geez, I can't even get my words out. That's how emotional I am tonight. But on that aspect, it's probably 0, if you want me to be totally honest. So if you call me administrator, listen, I say 0, but then how would anyone know? You know, unless you watch something like this tonight, unless you listen to the podcast like your brother has said, how would you know that I'm struggling?
But the thing is, Troy, one thing that amazes me, I mean, we had an all-parliamentary Zoom call this afternoon around LGBTQ plus representation and combating discrimination. And I asked Chris a question about, okay, all this hate crime online, what does it do to the community's mental health? And people sometimes forget about the victims but what about all the people involved? I mean, the amount of sessions you've had to deal with, the amount of incidents. Troy, can you deal with this? Troy, have you done it? Troy, what do you think about that? Actually, that's why I thought the question was amazing, because has anyone ever asked you, Troy, from a governance point of view, Troy, are you okay? Do you need any help?
No.
Is that something that we need to address?
It's something, absolutely. Anyone that works in this space, that is hearing stories, that is supporting people, that is, you know, being that safety net for someone, particularly from a player's perspective, need someone above them to support them, not above them, equal to them, whatever it may be, to support them as well. I don't think it's spoken about enough in the game. I don't think people appreciate when you're helping someone over, which could be traumatic experiences, etc., that you need some support as well. Even if it's, how was that today? Did it impact you? Was there bits that were relevant that you can appreciate? You know, that's why I would say 0, because if someone came on and said, oh, I did it for well, that's not enough, is it? There needs to be practices in place that actually means that, you know, I can be signposted somewhere, or I would receive a phone call, I don't know, every month. Troy, how you feeling? Now, I'm very similar to Lucy. I probably wouldn't answer that phone call. You know, me, I lock myself away. I switch my phone off. I don't answer people for days if I'm in that space, as some of you will probably know. But it doesn't stop the effort of trying to make that contact or leaving a message and saying, Troy, you know, trying to reach out to you today. Is everything okay? I know you was dealing with this case or that case, you know, that may have, you know, had a massive impact on you. So for me, it's nowhere near good enough, nowhere near at all. And I don't think it's important enough, or has been important enough in the grand scheme of things. For players, Mark will probably say this better than me. I think it's getting better. I don't think it's anywhere again. You know, anyone that's seen the news lately, we've lost again a couple of players because their mental space was not great, and they felt that the only thing left for them to do was to take their own lives. And that's young players as young as 17 right through to senior players, you know. And I think to myself, if there's even one player, one official who has those emotions, then the game, the industry has let them down. So whilst the awareness is there, and it's great with the campaigns, and it's brilliant that, you know, you can hear these messages and you see these hashtags, you've got to remember our industry is filled with thousands and thousands of people. So are we looking after the welfare of everybody? Because everyone is unique. I think we've mentioned it tonight. Everyone is unique. That's had a unique experience that is different too. So although there's a lot of similarities on this webinar tonight, as we've all kind of nodded along where everyone has said, it's all unique to us. There's something that's quite unique for us. And so I will need managing different to Mark or Tracy or Lucy. I want you to understand me in a different way. So it is a great question, Anwar. And like I say, from my perspective in the work that I do, I would say it's 0 with absolute massive amount of need for improvement there.
And I think it's really, really important. I mean, when we started Terrace Talk at the FSA, our staff, we actively looked to do training, and we've been doing training around all aspects of mental health, just so that if you are having a conversation, or if there is an issue that arises, you are better equipped or have a little bit more understanding. And I feel, I mean, I'm very old school. Listen, I'll pick up the phone and have a conversation with anyone. But over the last couple of years, I've had some very, very difficult conversations because I am very open. And actually, it's about the support we all need to be able to deal with that situation and actually offer the right support. So, Marsh, I mean, in terms of the playing aspect and in your experiences, it's difficult. I know you can't speak for everyone, but in terms of support around mental health and well-being in the game, do you feel like your clubs have supported you? Is there help outside? Is there? You're on mute. He's on mute. There you go.
Yeah, you know what? I think if I was to give it a rating, I wouldn't give it the best rating. Yes, there are things in place. The PFA do try to put things in place, and some individual clubs do get different people that you can speak to, like the club chaplain and, you know, psychologists and stuff like that. But I think a lot of the times you've got to go looking. It's not there in your face. And I think the so-called banter culture in football drowns out some individuals' need to speak. So many people have not made it in this game, not because they're not good enough, but because of the mental challenges that they face in the changing room. You know, you're sitting across from someone and the joke could be on you. And once they see that you're not coming back with something, the whole changing room starts to banter you. And some people go into their shell. Do you understand what I'm saying? And there's not any particular rules that governs the changing rooms. Do you understand what I'm saying? So it's very difficult, and I think more needs to be done. You know, like Troy just mentioned, with the youngsters, I've seen it recently, a few youngsters and also pros that are in the game and retiring, you know, spiraling into depression. It makes you think, you know what, are the governing bodies that are in control, are they doing enough? You know, is the PFA doing enough? And like I said, I can't criticize them because I know they do put things in place. And when I was going through what I was going through, you know, I had, you know, different individuals from the education or the mental health department trying to help me. But I think it kind of needs to be in your face a bit more. You understand? And I feel like in terms of governance, football is way behind. That's something I'll say openly. You know, people are allowed to get away with things that you wouldn't be able to get away with in a normal workplace, you know, and it's just the openness of things that people can say to people and they cover it as so-called banter.
Great point, Mark. I mean, myself and Troy have been doing education sessions, and Troy's been doing it for years at every level. And that's sometimes a topic of discussion that can take the whole session. It's supposed to be a segment. You could take the whole session. And myself and Chris did a session today, and we talked about England have been so close to World Cups and European Championships. But I personally believe all of these things that we've discussed is because we've missed out on talent pools from like the Asian community, the Black community, the LGBTQ plus community. We've missed out on those talent pools because of these reasons, Mark. And we've both been in the changing rooms. We know it. It happens. If you are a gay player and you are thinking, should I come out to my teammates? And you're dealt with banter every single day, you're not going to do that. So for me, all those players that we have missed out on from that talent pool, from underrepresented communities, that could have been a difference between us dictating football like the Brazilians have for years. I mean, Troy, you say...
Yeah, do you mind if I just pick up a point on what Mark said about banter? And I'm going to share a story. I'm not going to name the club. I don't know the players, but I'm going to share a story of young players, 18 years of age, who targeted one of their teammates because they felt that his mum was, I'm going to use their terms, so I apologize for this, assault. Okay. And they actually called her a MILF. Okay. So they told me this during a session. And I looked at the lad and I said, how does it make you feel? And I could see that he was struggling. But he got the confidence up to stand up and say to me and to his teammates, I don't like it. Now, he'd never shared that before to his teammates, and they all looked at him stunned, by the way. But the lad who was the aggressor out of the banter, you know, there's always one that leads the charge. And then, he stood up. And when he stood up, he was about 6'5". And I must admit, I struggled a little bit because as he looked up, I was like that. And I said to him, what impact does that have on you? It's all right, isn't it? It's a bit of banter, isn't it? It's not a problem. I don't know what his problem. A teammate that he shares a changing room with. And I said, would you like it if I called your mum? I don't know your mum, but would you like it if I addressed your mum in that way? Yeah, I ain't got a problem. I ain't got a problem at all. So I did, whether it was right or wrong. So I did. Now, I went back to the young lad and I said to him, are you okay? You know, you've shared an experience. And he went, yeah, I'm all right with it. I just want it to stop. That's what he shared in his changing room. By the way, now the other lad is now not taking his eyes off me. It's almost if now, you're going to call my mum what I've called his mum. And he got quite threatening. And I said to him, but can you see the impact? Your teammate has had to live with this and actually has been empowered by someone from the outside to share that experience so that all his teammates can understand that he didn't like it. But he couldn't do it in the changing room, Mark. And I think that's what, you know, kind of what you were saying. He couldn't say it in the changing room.
And that's exactly it. And I think that's one of the problems that a lot of people don't understand. It's like when the person being bantered reacts, they almost kind of, you know, oh my God, look at this person. Why are you getting so moody? But the honesty is, a lot of the things that you're probably saying to that person on a normal day-to-day basis, if you two were in a different environment, a different working environment, a different social environment, it would lead to a fight. You know, but they use that and you know, they use that to to pound on players. So talented players sometimes don't even, because of the state of mind that they're in through all that so-called banner, they don't even get to express their talents because they're crippled.
Yeah.
You understand? And
Yeah.
it's something that we need to address.
Yeah.
You know,
Fully agree.
it needs to be addressed. And also on the front of, you know, like the BLM and stuff like that, it's very hard for a young black youth to find their identity in a change room. And I know I don't want to sway off topic a bit, but it's all come down to the so-called mental health. You understand what I'm saying? Because, you know, I've seen over the years as I've become more senior in the change room, and I've started to become more observant how difficult that it is for young ethnic boys to find their place in that change room. Because for one, they're being stereotyped if they speak correctly, if they act correctly, because it's not expected. And if they act in a manner which is expected, you know, there's a stigma surrounding that as well. Do you kind of get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of problems that we need to address. Like you said, you know, the coming out and, you know, just being who you are, you know, just being able to tell someone, you know what, you don't like something, you know, just being you. It's hard to be yourself in the change room a lot of the times, because that's not the culture here, mate, if you get what I'm saying. You know, you should accept what we're saying. You should banter back. That might not be you, you know? And a lot of people don't see how that can affect someone's mental health. And ultimately, if you're a person that's chasing a dream and you know you've got the capabilities and you don't even get to express it on the pitch because of what is being said in the change room or what is being said off the field, you're going to go through life after that moment is past, because we all know that football's a short career. And you're going to question yourself, you know what, I could have done more. I could have done more. And then you're going to keep asking yourself, why? And then you ask yourself why, and then you finally come to the answer, oh my God, you know, I had the ability, but I was making people get into my head space. How do you feel after that? You know?
Listen, I'm conscious of time, I'm afraid, but I'll tell you what, you're absolutely right, Mark. And I think it's really important, actually, that we do, because banter's come up a couple of times, and I think it's really important that we don't see that football is some unique workplace, because it is a workplace with people in it that are going about their daily business. It doesn't matter how much you earn. And let's get it right. There are many more footballers that are earning much more modest sums than those in the Premier League. And you know what? Even if they're not, it doesn't mean that that should be what's happening. We have to treat them like proper workplaces and put in place the kind of the structures that enable them in that way. So look, it's really hard to sort of sum all of this up, so I'm not going to try. But one thing I will say is, I think there was one thing that Troy said earlier, that he'd made strides, and he'd made strides to get to the place where we can have this conversation. And I think that's what's really important, is that we all make those strides every single day. And that's what I've heard today from each of you. We've all made those strides every single day in our own ways to kind of keep moving forward. And what's important, having these kinds of conversations as well, is that we're making strides, and that these are conversations that are normalized to have, and we continue. So thank you to everybody in the chat who's had, you know, there's been some incredible stuff in the chat. Thank you so much to all of our panelists, to Troy, to Tracy, to Lucy, to Mark. Thank you to Anwar as well for sort of sharing. Thank you so much to Vicky and Debs at the FSA, who have worked really hard on putting all of this together. I think we're going to put up something to sort of signpost for, you know, further support here. But really, it's been and I don't say this lightly. I know it's the sort of thing that you kind of say on social media. Oh, it's been an honor and privilege, but it has been an absolute privilege to listen to everybody tonight, to read in the chat, and thank you so much for sharing your stories and being so open. I do think it makes a huge difference. Let's take that moment to think about Anwar's brother and listen to that podcast, there have been 50 odd people in here today listening to those stories, and they may share them with their friends and family. So, you know, I think we're making a difference having these conversations, and let's make sure that we continue. So thank you very much, everyone. Have good evenings. As there's some information up on the screen here. Thank you so much.